on tolerance. So this essay was published, as you know, that it was published after almost by the end of the World War, and the whole world is troubled, or the people, the whole world divided into two groups. They fought each other, and there were lots of chaos going on. And now, at the end of this world, the world is going to trying to uh, you know reconstruct or rebuild the world, the civilization. So tolerance. Everybody is talking about reconstruction. The setting is post World War II. Our enemies have their schemes for a new order in Europe, maintained by their secret police, and we on our side talking of rebuilding London or England or Western civilization, and we make plans how this is to be done, which is all very well. But when I hear such talk and see the architects sharpening their pencils and the contractors getting out their estimates and the statesmen marking out their spheres of influence and everyone getting down to the job, a very famous text occurs to me. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain who built it. So that is from that is a quotation from Bible. Okay, so basically, even though people can build houses, they can invest themselves in building all these kind of things. It is something more. There is something required in order to build a proper place. That is the meaning or paraphrasing of this particular uh, psalm. Okay. Beneath the poetic imagery of these words lies a hard scientific truth, namely, unless you have a sound attitude of mind, a right psychology, you cannot construct or reconstruct anything that will endure. The text is true not only for religious people but for workers, whatever their outlook. And it is significant that one of our historians, Dr. Arnold Toynbee, Toynbee is a famous, historian, should have chosen to predate his great study of the growth and decay of civilization. Surely, the only sound foundation for a civilization is a sound state of mind. So he says that the author or Foster says that in order to build a civilization that endure all these kind of things, the thing we need is the foundation is something that is related to our mind. Okay, so only sound foundation for a civilization can be built by using a sound state of mind. So that is the first requirement, okay, in reconstructing the world. Architects, contractors, international commissioners, marketing boards, broadcasting corporation will never by themselves build a new world. They must be inspired by the proper spirit, and there must be the proper spirit in the people for whom they are working. So he says that, the author says that, we know that it's not just a material world that we are going to rebuild. As we know that after World War II, the people are hurted. Everyone, everything was destroyed. No, people cannot, simply rebuild all the buildings and live there. In order to move forward, that the whole meaning of the whole civilization is totally different from that of a group of buildings. It is something more than, it is something beyond this architecture and that kind of things. So in order to rebuild a civilization, we need to have a sound mind. The people, the mentality of the people should be reconstructed. That is the first thing that we require. Now he says that, for instance, we shall never have a beautiful new lantern until people refuse to live in ugly houses. So it is the attitude of the people that should be changed. At present, they don't mind. They demand comfort but are indifferent to civic beauty. Indeed, they have no taste. I live myself in a hideous block of flats, but I cannot say it worries me, and until we are worried, all schemes for reconstructing London beautifully must automatically fail. So that is what he says. That psychology, the people should change their attitude. It actually happens in the heart of the people rather than in the materialistic sense. What though is the proper spirit? So he asks. So in the beginning, right from the starting of the start beginning of this essay, he is talking about the requirement of this foundation of a new civilization, that is a sound body. So what is something, what is that we need, what though is a proper spirit? We agree that the basic problem is psychological. Now he established that, the author established that the problem is psychological. The basic thing is psychological, that the load must build if the work is to stand, that there must be a sound state of mind before diplomacy or economics or trade conferences can function. Before all these things to happen, what we need is a sound state of mind. And what is the proper spirit? What is the thing that is going to help us? So, but what state of mind is sound? What is the most healthy thing? What is something that we should need? So he says that before going to the to the straight into the point, he is going to discuss about different options. So what emotions or what type of things that we can consider as a guiding principle that can help in reconstructing the society. So here we may differ. He says that we can have different opinion. Most people, when asked what spiritual quality is needed to rebuild civilization, will reply love. So he says that when we ask most people about what is something that we need to have a sound mind, the people will say that the spiritual quality we need to rebuild civilization is love. Men must love one another, they say. Nations must do likewise. And then the series of cataclysms which is threatening to destroy us will be checked. He says that if we love each other, that is, some of the people, their opinion, they have this opinion that we should love each other. What we require is love. And then if we love each other, then we can stop all these kind of issues. See, like in English, British people should love Germans, Indians should love other group of people. Like love, we should love each other. That is the opinion, or that is how some people consider themselves, that to overcome all these kind of problems, love is the solution. But he says, the author says that respectfully but firmly, I disagree. I don't agree with this opinion of love can rebuild or love can rekindle all the human bonds. Love is a great force in private life, I agree. It is indeed the greatest of all things, but love in public affairs does not work. The thing is that it has been tried again and again by the Christian civilizations of the Middle Ages, and also by the French Revolution, a secular movement which reasserted the brotherhood of man. So why he says so, that we are going to see. That is, love is a great thing. It is a great thing in our private life, but it is not that great in public affairs. And he says that the Christian civilizations of the Middle Ages, like you know, this Renaissance period, that civilizations, they all tried this again and again. That is the love, the harmony, the kind of warmth, the feeling of love towards each other. That is something we required to build the bond. And this World War One and Two proved that this thing, that is love, is not going to help or control all this kind of catastrophes. So he says that again in during French Revolution, as we know that the three principal liberty and then fraternity and equality, that kind of principles, again we saw that it also failed, and it has always failed. The idea that nations should love one another, or that business concerns or marketing boards should love one another, or that a man in Portugal should love a man in Peru of whom he has never heard, it is absurd, unreal, and dangerous to claim to ask someone to love someone else, that if from a public sphere of life, it is almost an absurdity. It's not going to work, because we cannot love someone whom we doesn't know. That is the thing. It leads us into perilous, vague sentimentalism. It's very easy to say that love is what is needed, we chant, and then sit back and the world goes on as before. The fact is, we can only love what we know personally. The reality is that we cannot rebuild, we cannot put up the world, we cannot move forward with love, the emotion of love. The reason is that we can only love things or people we know personally. That is the problem, and we cannot know much. The thing is that we don't know anyone. We know only very few people who are around us. We know that people and we love them. That is our family and friends. Beyond that, we don't know. We cannot know much. In public affairs, in the rebuilding of civilization, something much less dramatic and emotional is needed, namely tolerance. So he says that tolerance is something that we require in order to rebuild or in order to heal the world. Tolerance is a very dull virtue, as we know that comparing with love, love and tolerance. So love is something more enlightened, more, has a high privilege, or it is a higher level of emotions. When we talk about love, love is something very subtle, very very great. It's some of the it has the highest status as an emotion. But tolerance is kind of, dull thing. That is, we know that it is, we have to put up with something. We are asked to tolerate something. That is something below the that emotion of love. Tolerance is a very dull virtue. It is boring. Unlike love, it has always had a bad press. It has a bad connotation. It is negative. It merely means putting up with people, being able to stand things. So that is basically that emotion or that thing, tolerance. No one has ever written an ode to tolerance or raised a statue to her. We know that, we may celebrate love, we may celebrate that kind of emotion, sympathy, empathy, that kind of emotions. But tolerance is not that, was not worshipped by anyone. Nobody has written any kind of poem or ode about tolerance. Yet this is the quality which will be most needed after the world. This is the sound state of mind which we are looking for. This is the only force which will enable different races and classes and interests to settle down together to the work of reconstruction. Now, he says that the world is very full of people, appallingly full. It has never been so full before, and they are all tumbling over each other. Most of these people one doesn't know, and some of them one doesn't like the color of their skin, say, or the shapes of their noses, or the way they blow them or don't blow them, or the way they talk, or their smell, or their clothes, or their fondness for jazz, or their dislike of jazz, and so on. So basically, the author says that we don't like each other. We don't like, there will be some kind of reasons. Maybe the skin color, maybe the way how we talk, sleep, eat, or the way how we look at life or things. These all things differs, as we know that everyone has their own ideas about life. And as humans, we have the tendency to hate each other, considering all these kind of things, like their dress or their clothes or culture, language, all these kind of things. We know that Indians, as Indians, we know that. But he says that in order to cope up with this, we have only one thing to do, that is to tolerate. We need to develop this skill or this emotion of tolerance. Well, what is one to do? There are two solutions in order to overcome all these problems. We have two solutions basically. The In order to overcome this, difference in opinions, or we have different attitudes towards different people, we have two options to tackle this problem. That is, one of them is the Nazi solution. If you don't like people, simple, kill them, banish them, segregate them, and then strut up and down proclaiming that you are the salt of the earth. He says that, oh, very good, I am the superior one, I don't like anyone else. So the thing is that I'm going to kill everyone, banish everyone. That is a Nazi solution, Nazi way of dealing with this diversity. Okay. Now, the other way is much less thrilling, but it is on the whole the way of the democracies, and I prefer it. So, the second way is the way of democracy. If you don't like people, put up with them as well as you can. The thing is that just all right, don't try to love man, you can't, you will only strain yourself, but try to tolerate them. On the basis of that tolerance, a civilized future may be built. Certainly, I can see no other foundation for the post World War. He says that better don't love anyone. Just tolerate, just tolerate all the indifferences or all the differences. Just tolerate all the diversity. That is the way how we can tackle with the problems faced by the post World War. Now, for what it will most need is the negative virtues, not being huffy, touchy, irritable, revengeful. I have lost all faith in positive militant ideals. As he witnessed the horror of war, he lost all the faith in military ideals. They can so seldom be carried out without thousands of human beings getting maimed or imprisoned. Maimed means injuring severely. Okay, so basically these all these militant ideas are not good. Basically, we are going to the end result is violence. Phrase like "I will purge this nation," "I will clean up this city," terrifying and disgust me. They might not have mattered when the world was emptier. They are horrifying now when one nation is mixed up with another, when one city cannot be organically separated from its neighbors. And another point, reconstruction is unlikely to be rapid. I do not believe that we are psychologically fit for it. Planned architects never so wisely. In the long run, yes, perhaps. The history of our race justifies that hope. But civilization has its mysterious regressions. We have this, slipping back, stooping backward. That is something that is a recurrent thing happens with civilizations. And it seems to me that we are fated now to be in one of them and must recognize this and behave accordingly. So, that civilization, as we know that they faced this the horror of war, and they knew that humanity was completely destroyed. Now he says that this is the point of regression for our like many civilizations. We have to move forward, so we have to think about it. We have to behave accordingly. Tolerance, I believe, will be imperative after the establishment of peace. It's always useful to take a concrete instance, and I have been asking myself how I should behave if, after peace was signed, I met Germans who had been fighting against us. As we know that just after the World War, people killed each other. Now Germans are in the opposite, group. There were two groups, and Germans opposed British people, and then during the World War, Germans attacked Britain. I shouldn't try to love them. How could he love? We cannot ask a person after going through all these horrors of war to love the enemy. I shouldn't try to love them. I shouldn't feel inclined. They have broken a window in my little ugly flat for one thing, but I shall try to tolerate them because it is common sense. Because in the post World War, we shall have to live with Germans. So we cannot exterminate them any more than they have succeeded in exterminating the Jews. He says that it is not possible to wipe out Germans. It's See, the Germans, they tried to wipe out Jews, but what happened? They resurrected. They failed, even though after doing all these things. Germans, they tried under the leadership of Hitler. As we know that the Nazi Germany tried to wipe out or exterminate the Jews, but still, did they succeed? No, they didn't. So only thing we can do is that Germans will be there, Jews will be there. The only thing is that we have to tolerate each other. We shall have to put up with them, not for any lofty reason. It's not for so greater humanity. It's for greater good. That is the thing. But because it is the next thing that we will have to be done, that will have to be done. So that is the thing, we as a responsible human being, that is the only thing that we have to do in order to reconstruct the civilization, in order to move forward, in order to build a peaceful civilization or humanity. I don't then regard tolerance as a great, eternally established divine principle, though I might perhaps quote, "In my father's house are many mansions," in support of such a view. He can say that these exclamations like, in my father's house are many mansions. He can say that. It's very easy to say that, but he says that he don't consider it is a very divine type of principle. Tolerance is a very divine type of principle, but the only thing is that it's the only practical solution. Okay, it is just a makeshift suitable for an overcrowded and overheated planet. It carries on when love gives out, and love generally gives out as soon as we move away from our home and our friends and stand among strangers in a queue for potatoes. When we just step out of our house, we just we don't love anything anymore. That is the reality. But tolerance can help us to move forward. Tolerance is wanted in the queue. Otherwise, we think, why will people be so slow? It is wanted in the tube. Or why will people be so fast? It is wanted at the telephone. Or why are they so deaf? Or conversely, why do they mumble? It is wanted in the street, in the office, at the factory, and it is wanted above all between classes, races, and nations. It is dull. Even though tolerance is dull, it is the only thing that can help us move forward. Wherever we go, away from our home and friends, the only principle that is going to help us is tolerance, and it entails imagination, for you have all the time to be putting yourself in someone else place. So if we have this quality of tolerance, it can help us to understand the other person's perspective, which is a desirable spiritual exercise. He says that when you try to put yourself in someone else's place, we can understand the situations or the attitude of that person, and it is a very good exercise, a mental exercise to do. Now, this ceaseless effort to put up with other people seems tame, almost ignoble, so that it sometimes repels generous natures. And I don't recall many great men who have recommended tolerance. Many people they suggested love, but many of these great personalities, they never uh, praised this emotion of, or this principle of tolerance. Saint Paul certainly did not, nor did Dante. These personalities, Saint Paul and then Dante Alighieri, they never supported or they never praised tolerance. However, a few names occur going back over 2000 years, and to India, there is a great Buddhist emperor Ashoka who set up inscriptions recording not his own exploits but the need for mercy and mutual understanding and peace. So he says that 2000 almost 2000 years back, then there was a emperor Ashoka. We are familiar with Emperor Ashoka, who after going through the battles, he suddenly he became a follower of Buddhism, and then he put up these inscriptions for that seek mercy and mutual understanding among his people. Boy, that is one person who supported tolerance, who praised the quality of tolerance. Going back about 400 years, that is another person, that is to Holland, there is a Dutch scholar Erasmus who stood apart from the religious fanaticism of the Reformation and was abused by both parties in consequence. Because Erasmus, the scholar, Dutch scholar, he supported. He said that in order, I won't take part. I won't take a stand. I think that all these groups, all these religious groups should go together hand in hand, and that is the reason why he was banished by the all the religious groups. In the same century, there was a Frenchman, Montaigne, he is a famous French philosopher, subtle, intelligent, and witty, who lived in his quiet country house and wrote essays which still delight and confirm the civilization. You must be familiar with Montaigne. The reason is that he is considered as the father of essay. He is the one who, popularized this genre of essay. And England, there was John Locke, the philosopher, tabula rasa, the concept of tabula rasa and that kind of things. John Locke, the philosopher, and then there was Sidney Smith, another writer, Sidney Smith, the liberal and liberalizing divine, there was Louis Dickinson, writer of A Modern Symposium. So, this Modern Symposium is a book about tolerance, which might be called the Bible of Tolerance. So, the Bible of Tolerance, the book that is considered as the Bible of Tolerance is A Modern Symposium written by Louis Dickinson. Okay, Louis Dickinson. And Germany, yes, Germany, the reason why he says Germany, yes, Germany, because you know that the World War II was started, the reason was Germans. Okay, so he says that there is Goethe was a philosopher, and you must be familiar with him, he is very famous. And these men testified to the creed which I have been trying to express. What is a creed? The creed of tolerance, a negative creed but necessary for the salvation of this crowded, jostling modern world. He says that even though many people opposed, like Saint Paul and Dante, they opposed the principle of tolerance. Some people like Erasmus, then Ashoka, Emperor Ashoka, Dutch scholar Erasmus, then French essayist Montaigne, then we have John Locke, then Sydney Smith, then Louis Dickinson, and then Goethe. All these kind of people, almost 7 people, uh, famous personalities, they supported this creed of tolerance. Two more remarks. He says that just before ending this particular essay, he says that first, it is very easy to see fanaticism in other people, but difficult to spot in oneself. He says that we have this habit. In the last essay, as we mentioned, there is a tendency to find mistakes in others. So here also he says that we have this tendency to see mistakes in others. For example, take the evil of racial prejudice. We can easily detect it in the Nazis. Their conduct has been infamous ever since they rose to power. We know that the Aryans and then the Nazis, and the Jew stuff and all these conflicts happened, the extermination of Jews, all these kind of things happened. We know that Holocaust. But we ourselves, he says that we know that Nazis are like that, Nazis are like this, we know that. But we ourselves, are we guiltless? We are far less guilty than they are. Yet, is there no racial prejudice in the British Empire? You think that? You think that he asks them, he asks himself, or he says that we are also racial in nature, we also dominated many countries, we also did lots of racial prejudice things. It is not just Nazis, but we blame Nazis because it is our tendency to find fanaticism in other people but not in ourselves. Is there no color question? I ask you to consider that, those of you to whom tolerance is more than a pious word. My other remark is to forestall a criticism. He says that the first point is that we should think ourselves before judging others. That is the first thing. That is the first point he wants to deliver. He wants to share with the author or with the audience. Now the second thing is that it's a kind of to counter a criticism. Tolerance is not the same as weakness. So he wants to say, he just says that if I talk about tolerance, people will come and say that, oh, tolerance is just a weakness. Okay, it's just very easy thing to say. It's just a weakness. But putting up with people does not mean giving into them. So he says that tolerance is not same as weakness. The thing is that putting up with people does not mean giving into them. This complicates the problem. But the rebuilding of civilization is bound to be complicated. I only feel certain that unless the Lord builds the house, they will labor in vain who build it. Perhaps when the house is completed, love will enter it, and the greatest force in our private lives will also rule in public life. So he says that tolerance is something we require now. After rebuilding, after going through all these kind of things, after re-establishing the humanity, we may be able to, bring back this emotion of love. Once we tolerate, we will be able to love each other. That is this essay the on tolerance. Okay, so basically this is the essay. Now we will go to the other details.